This is the first guitar I've ever built. It's an acoustic guitar from 1983, and it's a clear homage to the Californian luthier Steve Klein. I've put the guitar on my attic in the 90s, and since it's very hot there in summer times, it's got some cracks, but it still has the sound of 1983. This was the start of my career as a guitar builder. I would like to introduce you to the work of my guitars, and I hope you will take the time to watch that video. This is my first guitar. Although it didn't sound like I expected, I still like the tone because it sounds like Elliott Smith. The second guitar had the grand auditorium tone, very close to my expectations. But the late 80s were no good times in Germany to sell acoustic guitars, and so I started to build electric guitars also. So I have built guitars like this one, but I also had my own guitar series, like the Dr. Mabuse from 1990 and the JFK bass series from 1992. In this year I began a study of industrial design, and coming back from my study I changed my approach in designing and building guitars. This is my last more conventional designed electric guitar I have built. I haven't finished the guitar and it's still in my workshop. Every once in a while I take it out of the board and have a look on it. The guitar is from March 1994. This is exactly the day when I stopped building conventional electrics. This is the first prototype of Birdfish. I made it to prove how the string tension reacts on the body when it can work through a very high leverage. The guitar was made in a fast rush. I call it my Buffalo Bill guitar, no hesitation. The neck is a Dr. Mabuse neck, and so this guitar is the only merger of both of my guitar building eras. So seeing that it could be a reasonable concept, I started to work on the particular design of the Birdfish. So these models show the proportions of the guitar. They allowed me to check the ergonomics, and they were never meant to be stringed. It was more a working model to test how the several elements of the guitar could be designed in order to give the guitar the function and the harmonic look. So here I got the first aluminium casts from the casting company, and I was working on the junctions of the wooden parts and the aluminium. This is one of the first Birdfish presented at the Musikmesse in Frankfurt in 1995. I presented those guitars with 1 pickups, 2 pickups and 3 pickups. The only guitar that stayed with me was the one with the 1 pickup. The humbuckers had rectangular shapes, and the single coils had shapes which were similar to the shapes that the pickups have now. The body of this guitar is, I don't remember the timber, but the neck was from mahogany, and the connection from the pickups to the control box is different than it's now. But it's a Birdfish. If you ever see one of those, don't hesitate. After Paul Landers of the band Rammstein has bought a Birdfish, he asked me if I could build another guitar for him. His idea was a guitar with a round body, made from mahogany with a maple top. And the guitar should sound like a Les Paul, but look like a banjo. When I played the guitar first, I was really in doubt. The guitar had no bass response. The sound check with this guitar has been a big disappointment, and I tried to figure out what's the reason for that, and I got into talks with colleagues in order to improve the tone. So we decided to glue on a little bit more mahogany on the back of the guitar to get more response, or to add some additional weight on the headstock, which is not a headstock, in order to have a kind of resonance anchor where it was just a theory. But both attempts didn't work out, so the tone hasn't become really better. And so I had to dive deeper into what is the reason for this defect of tone. This is what I call the log. I want to show you a very simple experiment. Given that this is Paul's guitar body, so the resonance is very high. And now, watch. Now look, we are half the way now. Huh? So the volume and the mass is still the same, but the form has changed. So if you want to build a guitar with a bass response, you just need a wooden fiber that has enough length. And it doesn't even matter that much if it's cut into pieces and glued together again. And Paul's guitar with a circular shape just didn't have a long wooden fiber. And if you abstract that even more, then you could say the least sounding guitar, the worst sounding guitar, would be a wooden bowl with a guitar neck on, because there is the shortest wooden fiber at a certain amount of mass which is possible. And that's all. So this sparked the idea of the Tesla. And so I began with the design of my Tesla model in 1999. The longer upper body part shows my lesson with the bass response of Paul's guitar. Also, the short neck gives the low B string in the 7-string version a very, very powerful punch. There is this painting of Sigmar Polke, a German artist, who painted a piece called Höhere Wesen befahlen, rechte obere Ecke schwarz malen. Translated, it would be higher beings commanded, paint the upper right corner black. And it looks like this. I think exclamation mark, yeah. So this is it. Höhere Wesen befallen, paint the upper right corner black. And this is to me a leitmotif, because it expresses that quite often we think, and especially in guitar making or instrumental making of musical instruments, we think that everything is driven or given by a higher genius, by a godly sending. And most oftenly, it's fairly profane. And when I start to look at things and try to understand what it means in the way of how we learned the meaning, I remember Polke and ask myself, höhere Wesen befallen, paint the upper right corner black. So when I was young as a guitar builder, I paid obeisance very much to the tradition, to the informations I got, that was before the internet, to articles I read in the magazines, and all to rumors and talks. And looking back, I found that it was very deluding. And it would have been better just to doubt and to try out. And nowadays, I pay a lot of respect to the tradition of guitars, but that doesn't mean necessarily that I think that the tradition is something given which is unencryptable. Most oftenly, it's been very simple things that led to something that we call now traditional. When I was a young guitar maker, I was depending on all sources of information I could get, such as magazines, books, talks with guitar players, and I was really paying attention to all those rumors, and I took them probably more serious than I should have that I should have done. And the older I got, the more I realized that it's very important to find out what is an authoric information that will help you, and you do well to obey to this information, and what is just nonsense. So doubt is a very good and sharp tool to build guitars. What is my best design? The Tesla? Yeah, somehow. I always had a thing with the Tesla, because this is on the first view, it's a very simple guitar, and it has a very simple shape, and that's the strength, the power of the Tesla. You might say the Birdfish. Well, the Birdfish has a, say, flamboyant design, a loud design, extravagant design, but the fight with a simple idea took place for me in the Tesla. It's a very reduced shape. I really love the shape, and still this simple shape of the Teuffler has so much potential of confrontation, of refusal, of constructive refusal. So there are many, many people who hate the Teuffler because they think this is not a guitar. And there are so many people who burn for the Teuffler. I have a client who, when he got his Teuffler, that's years ago now, he tattooed the Teuffler on his shoulder. And that was before the big thing of tattooing. So to him, this guitar has really been a confession. The Teuffler is my favorite design, but there is one design which is even more crucial to me, more important, and I would say even better, but with one exception. This design triggered so many positive things in my life and my career as a luthier, but it didn't evolve or didn't emerge as a guitar to the market. So it's the cover guitar. It sparked everything that happened in the last 15 years. And it's a prototype of a guitar. Oh, wait, I will show it. Look, it's this guitar. This is a guitar which has a roughly cut body and it's covered with plastic shells. The concept of this guitar was to separate the vibration of the body from the muting factor of the human body. You can compare it with the chin rest of a violin. So this was my basic idea. And then I did a design together with Andreas Pichler of Andreas Guitars. I think it was in 2003. And I came together with Fender, and they were interested in this idea how a guitar with a changeable identity with plastic shells could sound and work. And well, they paid me really well, and it was a very, very nice encounter and cooperation with Fender. That was the time when Bill Schulz was still the CEO. It was in 2003, yes, I remember. And this guitar, this very guitar, well, I have two prototypes. This is the one that was painted by the Fender Custom Shop, and it was labeled by Fender. You see? So this is a real Fender, a genuine Fender. I still do have all the contracts and everything which testify this very guitar. And actually, it's one of my favorite guitars to play because the idea of this guitar was to design an industrial guitar which will be produced after industrial demands. Form follows production in a very simple way. And this guitar is not hilarious, it's not complicated, it has a very simple control, and it's not sophisticated. It's just a pop instrument in the real meaning of pop. And this is the guitar that I quite often pick and play when I feel in a fresh mood. Probably this guitar came too late in the period when the retro trend was really on the peak, on the starting peak. And but for me, it was a very, very good experience to work on this guitar. And without that guitar, I wouldn't have my machine, my camera obscura, my discovering of the central perspective of guitar design. So it has been a very, very important moment in my life to build this guitar. And the deal was perfect. I was well paid. The other prototype, which I own, has the logo cover on the headstock. This was the corporate identity we designed for the guitar. And this is a Fender guitar, actually. And to me, it's a kind of Blue Mauritius, or do you know Blue Mauritius? I don't know. This really, really rare stamp, or it's an Apple stock from 1992. So this is a guitar I will never let go. My Fender Blue Mauritius. Awesome. So With the revenues of that project, during that project, I bought a CAD program and a CNC program and a CNC machine, and that opened a totally new workflow for me. And my approach to work with CNC was never to save time or just to be lazy, because the investment you have to do to work with the CNC machine is so ridiculously high that you build guitars by hand or with a pin router 100 times faster, especially if you build only 15 guitars or maximum 20 guitars a year, as I do. So for me, it was more to explore the potential of that machine and to do things and to design things that I can't build by hand. For instance, let me show you how I mean that. This is a body of a Niwa. And well, you can do the shape by hand, and the prototype, of course, was shaped by hand before I redesigned it in the computer. But what you can't do by hand is to arrange the different axes of the cavities, of the functional cavities, perpendicular to that very surface. This is much too complicated to do by hand, and this is why you usually stick to the traditional guitar shapes, because it's not form follows function, if you ask me. It's more or less form follows production that decides about our cultural white noise of shapes. And on guitars, you see typically that all of the shapes were made with a pin router, which is absolutely fine. But for me, it was a kind of door opener to do things like, this is a solid jack plate, which is also an acoustical element on the back of the guitar, and it fits perfectly to that surface. This is unfeasible to do by hand. I've been there at the Documenta 8 in Kassel. And I've seen that the first time. The triumph of the New York school. So, this is it.